Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I'm so glad you're here. You know, I've been very conflicted about doing this segment for a long time now, but I also came to the conclusion that sometimes bearing your soul and showing part of your maybe guarded self may be beneficial to other people. So I went ahead and talked myself into doing this. You know, over my 4.5 decades of doing radio shows, I've done many of them that were controversial, some of them that might have made people feel uncomfortable, and maybe talking about some of the things that a lot of people maybe wanted to talk about, but maybe they themselves didn't have maybe the courage to talk about. That's usually never been an issue for me because I think that all information is good information and you take from it what you take. So over the years, and probably more so after the last 4 or 5 years, I have had a lot of people reach out to me that were really dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And mental health has really been something that has been there for a very long time. I seriously think that after the pandemic, a lot more people came out of the woodwork, if you were. They came out and they felt a little bit more comfortable talking about something because I think it really became a little bit more open to talk about mental health issues after the pandemic and everybody was shut up at home. And it's not a pretty situation. And I was talking with a youngster, well, early 20s, who had reached out to me, and I had worked with his family and his parents and his grandparents and his great-grandparents over the years. So he knew me and reached out to me a while back and asked if I could meet up with him, and I did. And we were sitting at a Starbucks and just kind of having a great conversation, and he said that his stepfather had thrown him out on the street. And he was working and actually paying toward rent and everything, really trying to be a responsible person. But his stepfather found out that he was gay. And the stepfather literally packed his bags and threw them out on the lawn and threw him out. And not knowing where to go, he was kind of couch surfing for a while. And, you know, he wanted to talk to somebody, but didn't know who to talk to. And out of the blue, I guess I've known him since he was a young kid, and maybe he felt comfortable with me and gave me a call. And it was a very hard conversation because this poor young man was totally distraught and totally at his end. And he had talked about, you know, committing suicide. He talked about just ending it because he just did not feel like he was ever going to be able to be what his family wanted him to be. I think there was an abusive household there as well. And I found out later that there was. But mom, who I knew, was not standing up for him either, maybe out of fear for herself. Not sure. I found out more as time went on. But we had this great conversation, and I think I kind of talked him off the ledge after a period of time. And, you know, he was getting ready to end the conversation, and he looked at me and he said, "I know this is hard for you to understand. And you would probably never find yourself in a situation like this." And I sat there for a minute and I had to very quickly put things through my mind. And I started thinking that, do I open the door and let him in to something that I've kept to myself up till this point, to maybe let him understand that this is not an issue that affects only certain people. It doesn't affect people that are just gay and coming out of the closet, or people that are coming from abusive households. It can come from people that are under a lot of stress and people dealing with grief and people that have had financial problems or health problems. There's so many different facets of and groups of people that may be dealing with these issues. And I said, you got time for a story? And he said, I do. And I said, I want you to know that this is very hard for me, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with you because I want you to know that there is not a certain group of people that are going to have mental health issues. Some people feel like, you know, they've got it all together. This could never be an issue for them. And I don't think that could be farther than the truth. So I said, my very best friend in the world in 1998 died. And I did not deal with it very well. And I talked to people and I was not getting any resolution because nobody was really giving me any kind of information that was consoling me to the point where, not that I wanted anybody to fix it, obviously you can't fix that, but I just was not finding what I was looking for. And I made the conscious decision that I was going to end my life. Now, people may say, I can't imagine you doing that, but why not? How am I different than anybody else? Everybody has times when things are very, very bad, very hard, and sometimes we don't always deal with it very well. So my plan was, my mother at that point was using a benzodiazepine Xanax, and every time I go to her house, this was the plan. I went in her bottle and took 3 or 4 tablets and brought them home. And when I had enough of them together, I decided that it was time to do what I wanted to do. And I went back and forth on this. And what I did was I wrote 10 letters, hand letters to the 10 people in my life that I loved the most. And I had them all addressed in envelopes and they were all laid on my bed. And I got a bottle of wine. Yeah, I still drank back then. So I had a beautiful bottle of wine. I ran a hot bath with lavender oil, candles. And I decided that this was the time. And I did my research. I knew exactly where to use a razor on my arms. I marked them with black ink marker. So I knew exactly where to do what I wanted to do. And in the moment, it seemed like it was my only choice that I could make. And whether I had convinced myself of that, I wasn't seeing anything past it. I wasn't seeing the selfish part of it, which definitely it is. And I just was seeing that this was the way of resolving the issues that I just couldn't deal with. So I took 3 or 4 of the Xanax and I had the other ones there next to me in a little cup on the bathtub. And right as I swallowed them, my phone rang. And it was my nephew. And he was, I think, 7 years old. And, hey, Uncle Jeff, how are you? And I said, well, I'm fine. How are you? And I said, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. Something told me to give you a call and tell you how I'm doing. So I was like, oh boy. So we started having this conversation and he's talking and talking and I'm having a great conversation. And all of a sudden in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, I said, my mother is going to be the one that finds me here. And all of a sudden, selfish guilt just went all the way over my mind. It just totally came over me like rain. And as he was talking to me, I literally put the phone on mute and I stuck my finger down my throat and I threw up those tablets. And then he started continuing to talk to me and I actually dumped the wine down the sink. I put the other Xanax in the toilet and I flushed them. I let the water out of the tub. I blew out the candles. And while he was still talking and telling me about his day and what he was doing, and he started baseball and all this kind of stuff, I shredded the 10 letters. And then when everything was done, I sat on the bed and had a talk with him for like an hour and a half. And I realized that that dose of reality pulled me back. And it was exactly what I needed at the time. Now, I'm not saying everybody is lucky enough to have that kind of an event that could help them, but I don't think it would hurt if there was that kind of an event that did happen for people. So I never said anything about it. There's very, very, very few people that know this. And it's been very hard for me to open up about it. But I want to be able to say from my heart that there are times out there when things are bad and the world is just beating down on us in a very hard fashion. Bad relationships, terrible jobs that we should have left years ago, financial problems, health issues that come about, and just the world in general. It's not a pretty place. And not all of us are made to be able to deal with these issues that are going on out there. So here we are, years and years and years and years and years later, and I was visiting my family, and I was sitting with my brother out in his man cave back in Michigan, and I told him about this and shared it with him, and he had a hard time dealing with it. He was crying and upset, but also pleased that it didn't go the way that it could have gone. And I said, I need to talk to AJ. I need to thank him. And he said, okay. So his son came over my nephew, and he was sitting there, and I said, I want to share something with you, and I would just appreciate it if you didn't say anything till I was done, because I won't be able to restart once I get started, and if I stop. So I told him the whole thing, the whole story, and I thanked him for calling me, and he said, I don't remember. I said, it doesn't matter. I said, I just want you to know that your call is what snapped me back to reality, and I wouldn't be sitting here right now had it not been for your call. And you even said on the phone, you don't know why you're calling, but you needed to call. And gave me a big hug, and we haven't spoke about it since then. And it was just, I just wanted him to know how thankful I was for him. And I've never, ever, ever had anything like this ever cross my mind again. And I've had other losses that have happened along the way, but I realized that there's no quick way out of dealing with grief. Grief comes and goes differently for everyone. And people need to realize that you will deal with grief in the way that works the best for you. And it may be short, it may be long, and it may be something that's ever going, for long periods of time. And that's perfectly okay. And dealing with grief is something that you have to individually do. But I just want people to know that if you get to that point, please reach out to someone. You probably have more people in your life that would lend a shoulder and an ear than you probably even know, even though at that time you feel like you're very much by yourself, but you're not. And I mean, if you're in my circle and you need to reach out, you can reach out to me. I do understand. And I want people to know that there are many things that happen in our lives that can set us down a spiral. And today, it seems like there's more and more people that are out there. My goodness, just watch the news. How many people that seem to have everything going for them in the world, in Hollywood and influencers and all these people that have got huge crowds of people and pockets full of money and success and notoriety, and you find out that they took their life. You can't measure your mental health by the outward appearance of wealth and popularity. It has to be something that is based on who you are and where you are and where you want to be and where you've gone and what you've gone through. And I think it just has to be something that is between you and a higher power and you and yourself. And never feel like it's an issue, a negative issue to go for counseling or for just to reach out to a good friend or someone in your clergy or, a teacher, a professor, a neighbor, a family member. Somebody that you know and you trust that will be there to support and not be judgmental. But I want you to know that there are people that are always in your court, on your side, and they would be there. But we, as the individual that may be going through the suffering, have to reach out. Sometimes I see people and I'll reach out because something doesn't feel right. And I'll reach out, and sometimes they'll open the door, they'll open the window, they'll let you in. Sometimes they keep it to themselves. And there's been times over the years when I thought something was up and I didn't reach out, and I wish I had because something happened after that, and it was a terrible thing, and I carried the guilt. But I mean, all I can do is be there, if someone needs my help and support, or maybe just to be present. You don't need to judge, you don't need to solve, you don't need to fix, you just need to be present. You just need to be there. And my nephew, in my case, was there for me. And actually, at this point right now, I can't even imagine ever going through that. But that just shows you how much we can bottom out and be completely opposite of the person that we are or our value systems. I can't even imagine what it would have been like for my mother to find me here, because she lives out here as well, and she would have been the one to find me. And that would have been absolutely terrible for her. And I wasn't thinking about that at that point. It didn't get to that reality until I got the phone call, and then all of a sudden all of it just kind of poured over me like there was pouring a bucket of water, and all this awareness just came in my direction. So I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do every single day, and all I've been able to do all these years past that point have made a difference for myself and for other people all over the place and around the world. I have amazing people in my life. I have awesome critters, horses and dogs that I adore, and friends that I treasure. So I can't imagine what it would have been like to not experience all these wonderful things. And it all could have been different without a phone call. My grandmother used to always say there are no coincidences, and she used to say that a lot. And I think today it means more to me than it did back then when I was just a young kid and, just kind of, learning along the way. I don't think I was foolish. I don't think I was stupid. I think I was stressed, and I think I was at my worst point in my world. And I know a lot of people have been there. So I just want to one more time say, if you're going through things like this, reach out. Reach out to someone, talk to someone, get it out in the open, have that conversation. Because to say that it could be life-changing is an understatement. I thank you for letting me share this. I think it was something that was long overdue. It just took me a long time to be able to feel comfortable enough bearing my soul. But I've just seen way too much lately. And I think to myself sometimes when I hear about some of these losses that have come about by the hand of the person with themselves taking their own lives, I think to myself, what if someone could have been there to just be present? And I'm thankful that there was someone there for me. I thank you all for listening, and I hope that this is something that may be helpful, if not to you, maybe to someone you know. I just think that if one person out there hears this and benefits from the message, then that's exactly what I wanted it for. But I wish you all a wonderful day. Be well, stay healthy, and do something just for you because you deserve it. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.